Welcome to Cat Energy Work. My name is Teresa. This is an energy report. Hopefully you can hear me all right over my fan. What I want to talk about, I've had on my list for a while. It's based on my conversation I had with someone else. So, what I want to talk about is the root of disappointment is cross-dimensional expectations. It's more of a concept, so I don't know if it needs any real deep explaining. So what I'm talking about is you go through your life and you have this vision in your head, these sort of daydreams or astral projections or thought forms where you see something happening. You can say, like, oh, I want this, but it's not even to the point of saying, I'm telling the universe this is what I want. It's, I imagine it to be this way, and then I just sort of stick it in the corner somewhere. And then when I think about it again, I imagine it this way. And this could be, like, in terms of what you're doing with leisure time, like what you're doing in your free time, what you have as like personal goals, and it can be in terms of what you expect a relationship to be, like how you think it's going to begin, what you expect when you're in that relationship, and are you like, can you live without this person? Why or why not? Are you obsessed? Or in terms of what you expect for work. Like I expect to go to college and get a job in my field and, be able to do it long enough to pay off my student loans and then still be interested in what I'm doing. Those kinds of things. And I've I don't know if my situation is different from other people because I have this, the autism, so I've had to deal with, and I didn't know it until I was over 40. So I've gone through these phases where I'm trying to be a person and it doesn't go how I think, and then I just sort of collapse into a heap in the cupboard like a flan or whatever. So this idea kind of hit me one day. Again, I think it was part of a conversation. It was like a side quest to different thoughts. But the general idea is my frustration at not being able to communicate with a person because they fucked off somewhere, or I messed up when I was dealing with them, or I worked really hard and nothing got better. I put in effort, I did work, and all I got was sick and laid off, or, what was the other thing? Every time I tried to exercise, I got cock blocked in some way. Like I'd roll my ankle, or emergency would happen, and my leisure time would go away. Those are just examples. I'm trying to get more specific so that it makes more sense on a personal basis. I think those examples are pretty close, but it's like if I want to. Well, yeah, I think I was pretty close with those examples. I feel like I wasn't specific enough, but I think it doesn't matter. I think some of it has to do with not remembering your life purpose and flailing around and being out of sequence. like out of flow with your life pattern, right? It's like I need to stay in the lines of the wave, and I'm going in a circle in the opposite direction. Like instead of coloring in the picture so I can see something, I'm just scratching all over the page because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Because I woke up and was born and a baby, and I didn't remember what I was doing 2 months ago, before I had to enter the world. So there's this idea of forgetfulness, but what the whole point of making this video is to say what occurred to me is, at least some of the time, my expectations are based on stuff that exists in other dimensions. This idea of every second that you do something, the universe breaks off into another fragment. There's another brain world. Every option is a reality somewhere, but I only know the timeline that I'm on. So if I'm dreaming about it in some way, I'm astral projecting for a moment while I'm living that situation in my head in some way. I'm not in the material dimension. I'm in a parallel universe. I'm existing in a time that's only a probability, right? The the quantum foam could take a different shape. That's kind of why when you do any kind of predictions or divination, it's not always going to be 100% accurate, because things are always moving. You could say it has to do with free will, but it's basically like I see it as kind of a fissure coming down the road, like some major disaster movie, and the road just starts cracking, and the crack gets longer and longer. But imagine it like lightning, where it forks every time the crack moves, so it's zigzagging back and forth and going this way and that. And that's kind of how the timeline unfolds in terms of predictability. So I make a choice, and the fissure starts branching each time as it cracks through, like, the future. So if I make a prediction, it might like make that time crack and end up close to my prediction, but it could fork off in the other direction entirely based on these sort of nanosecond decisions that are happening. And this point that Matthias De Stefano made that I thought was really good in one of the things I watched, and I don't know whether it was like recent or from a couple years ago, but he was talking about how you in your head, you make decisions, but because you're like a meat space thing, there's 66 trillion cells all exerting their own kind of willpower. So it's just sort of like your whole reality is just vibrating constantly. So when you experience this anger at, or like frustration, like, why isn't this happening? Why didn't that happen? It's because you're trying to stay attached to something that's on a different branch of the fissure now. It's like, I could say, okay, would help if I knew where I know where the Nile ends and begins better than I know where the frickin' Grand Canyon is exactly. But it's like I start at one end and I make it. Actually, it might work better with the Mississippi River because I kind of know that one. So if I'm in some river in Ohio or something, I could follow that branch, and I can predict that it comes out in Louisiana at the mouth, at the delta of the Mississippi. But I could totally branch off into just like the other corner of Ohio. And if I say, like, well, that's not what I wanted, then I'm going to be pissed. But that's an option that I've taken in time because somehow the rest of me was in resonance with going not as far down the river and in another direction. So it's like I wanted to be with that person, and they're like, no. Or they didn't even know that you were having some kind of energetic conversation with them at all. It's like someone's flirting with you in public and you're just like, like, you're like over, like completely didn't notice. Or, again, like maybe they were involved and they were just like, no, or not like that. And you're like, but we were supposed to be married and have kids, and in this other dimension that's existing, like it's an opportunity in all of time space, but it's not happening right now. And this sort of cognitive dissonance between potentialities and what's happening in reality can create that frustration. So hopefully that makes sense. It's a little bit more of a thought experiment than it is something to say like, oh, I don't have to be responsible for being butthurt now. It's a way to look at things differently so you can kind of snap out of this. Like, why am I so pissed off? It's like, oh, that's a different... If I say like, oh, that's a different timeline, now I don't have some kind of moral failing for it not going how I thought it in my head. And that can provide relief instead of saying like, oh, I'm not responsible in any way now, like, or saying like, now I've got to like calculate how to get back to that timeline, because that's not really a possibility. You can't, the shit's out of the horse. You can't, it's like you can't like glue the mountain back together or something like that. So hopefully that is useful for some people. I feel like I mostly rambled and didn't get to the point, but I haven't, it's only as long as it needs to be. This is more like just kind of like a like 10 minutes on a sentence, so it doesn't need to be like 4 hours long, alright? So, take it easy, and what is it? Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, check out my playlists tab, and stay groovy, and we'll see you later. Bye. I think that's how my ending goes. It's been a minute. Thank you for watching. Stay connected with Cat the Minion Energy Work. Check out my complete suite of goods and services conveniently from my Linktree. linktr.ee/cattheminion. Color your way into some relaxation with my coloring books Energy Forms and Draco Forms on Amazon. Get groovy with fashion and home accessories from my Cafe Press or Redbubble shops. Decorate your environment with original art and divination tools from my Etsy shop.